This homework is probably going to have to be broken up into 2 recordings because there's a lot to discuss. Okay, so a division expression can be written as a fraction. For example, if I have 5 cookies shared equally by 3 people, I can draw out 5 cookies and I can divide each one equally into by 3, and I would get 1 whole and 2/3. And I represented that with 3 different Crayola colors since there are 3 people that are sharing. Another thing that I could do is actually write out just the fractional piece, which means that I can have thirds, but I need to make sure I have 5 of those thirds. So here's 3/3, 4/3, 5/3. So that gave me 1 whole and 2/3, which is the same thing I would get if I drew out 5 cookies and divided those equally among 3 people. Okay. Number 2. Those of you that were in Group B, you guys went over this in class with me through a Kahoot. Group A, you did not. So make sure you pay very close attention. Okay, so if I'm multiplying 1/2 times 1/3, well, we know when we multiply a fraction, we multiply the numerator times the numerator and the denominator times the denominator. So that would give me 1/6. Okay, so if I'm going to model that, then I'm going to make sure that I have 6 boxes here. When I'm showing 1/2, I know that I am having 2 columns because 2 tells me how many pieces make 1 whole, but my numerator tells me how many pieces I'm shading in, that I'm keeping. So I'm keeping 1 of the 2. Okay? Now I have 1/3, so that tells me how many rows. I'm going to have 3 rows, but my numerator tells me how many are overlapping. So I'm going to have 1/3, 1 out of 3, and I'm also going to have 1 of the half. So then 1/2 times 1/3 gives me 1/6. And as you can see, there's 1 that's overlapping out of 6 boxes. So 1/6 is my product. Okay, your turn. 1/2 times 1/4. Here are my columns. I have 2 columns. I'm keeping 1 of those. Here's that one. So I'm going to circle 1 out of the 2. Okay. Now I have 1/4, so that means I'm going to have 4 rows. So I'm shading in 4, but I'm going to have 1 that overlaps that 1/2. So if I look very carefully, I have 1 out of 8. So that gives me a product of 1/8. Number 3, Alaska is about 663,000 square miles. Georgia is about 59,000 square miles. About how much larger is Alaska than Georgia? If I look at my powers of 10, I have, sorry, that's the wrong one. If I were to multiply this times 10, it would give me 1 more 0, so it's about 10 times larger than Georgia. Number 4. What if there were only 3 cookies and 5 people? So I have 3 cookies here and 5 people, so I'm going to divide them into fifths. I'm going to see how much each person can get equally. So if I do that equally, each person can get 3 equally out of the 5 pieces that it's divided into. Okay? So 5 people can get 3 out of 5, or 3/5 of a cookie. I'm going to go back to 3 just so that since I erased right here, I want you guys to understand. Remember, if I multiply anything times 10, so if I multiplied 60 times 10, it's going to give me 600,000. And that's as close as I can get to 660,000. Okay, if I multiplied that times 100, it would give me 6 million, which would be way larger. So I just wanted to make sure I went back and explained that and make sure you guys understand that if I multiply this times 10, that's what's actually happening. And I'm going to get about 600,000 instead of 60,000. Okay? Just making sure you guys know that. I know in class when I was kind of rushing, I think I selected 1,000 because I wasn't really paying attention. So just wanted to make sure I want to go back through that. All right, list the factors for 12. 1, 12, 6, 2, 3, and 4. And the factors for 24. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 12, and 24. Common factors are 12 and 24. Largest common factor is 12. Okay, day 2, 6/8 plus 6/8, as you can see it's 12/8 equals 1 4/8. Also, I can reduce 1 4/8 to 1 1/2. Give me a second, the light went out. All right, number 2. A fraction represents a division problem. The line between a numerator and denominator means out of. So if I have 8/10, that means 8 out of 10, or 8 divided by 10. So 8 divided by 10 is 8/10. Why is the answer less than? Because my denominator is, which one is it? Sorry, my dividend is less than my denominator, because 3 is less than 4 in that one. Okay, same thing here. 8 is less than 10. Number 3, if I multiply 180 times 5/10, I get 90. If I divide 180 by 5/10, remember I have to make it a whole number, so I'm really dividing 5 into 1,800, and I get 360. 3 4/9 minus 1 1/9 equals 2 3/9, or 21/9. Fractions are equivalent if they have the same value. The other thing, guys, you could have is 2 1/3. Okay. All right, next one. Circle the numbers that are divisible by 6. If a number is divisible by 6, it has to be divisible by its prime numbers. So if 6 is, its two prime numbers are 2 and 3. Okay. So to be divisible by 2, all a number has to do is end in a multiple of 2 or 0. So let's look at the numbers that are divisible by 2. 372, 468, 574, 720, 116, 558, 265 is not divisible by 2, 354, and 390. So all of those numbers, with the exception of 1, are divisible by 2. But to be divisible by 6, it also has to be divisible by 3. So what are our divisibility rules for 3? If I add up all these numbers, will it give me a number that's divisible by 3? That means if I multiply 3 and a number, I would get that product. So if I add 3 plus 7, I get 10, plus 2 gives me 12. And yes, 3 times 4 is 12. So yes, that number is going to be divisible by 6 because it's divisible by 2 and 3. Okay, let's try another one. 486. If I add up 4 and 8, I get 12, plus 6 more is 18, and yes, 3 times a number gives me 18, so yes, 2 and 3 are both divisible by, 486 are both divisible by 2 and 3, so yes, it's divisible by 6. All right, if I continue to go, 720, 7 plus 2 is 9, plus 0 is 9, so yes, it's divisible by 2 and 3, which means it's divisible by 6. The next one, yes, divisible by 6, divisible by 6, divisible by 6. All right, I'm rounding to the nearest 10. I get 60, 10, 60, and 0. So it gives me an estimate of 130. Exact sum, I get 136 and 36 thousandths. Number 2, use the grid to create a model to show 4 tenths times 8 tenths, and I get 32 hundredths. Okay. Number 3, I get 63 and 5 tenths times 4 and 7 tenths. Partial product, and I get 298 and 45 hundredths. Write 3 equivalent fractions. If I multiply the top and the bottom by any numbers, the same, they have to be the same number though. So if I multiply the top by 2, I multiply the bottom by 2. I did 2 and I got 6 sixteenths. By 3, I got 9 24ths. By 4, I got 12 over 32. The Relay for Life team wants to put a cheering station every half mile between 6 miles. So how many cheering stations will they have? I can draw a number line to prove my answer. Here's the 6 mile, here's 0 miles. So if they want to do one every half mile, then that gives me 12 jumps, and that would be 12 stations. Day 4. Guys, please note, I know I'm going pretty quickly for the recording purpose, but you can pause this. Okay, so what's the quotient that I'm dividing by? I have 4 tenths. Remember, I have to make it a whole number. I have to make this a larger number, so I multiplied by 10, I multiply by 10, and I get 560 on this side. When I divide, I get 140 as my quotient. Okay, this is the one I know, I'm going to explain this further in class. Just know that I made 4 models that are thirds. Because I have 4 and 2/3, I needed to make sure I had 4 whole models and 2/3, and I have times 2, so I have 1 here, and then I have a second one here. 4 whole models and 2/3. Using mental math, this is what we do on calendar every day, so I'm not going to go through that one. Alright, and then Robert saves $18.65 every month. Paul saves 10 times more than Robert each month. How much does Paul save each month? $186.50. So how much would he save times 2 months? If he already started with 273. So all I do is add 273 times 2 months, and I got $646. Have a good evening.